Hi, I'm Dr. Joel Miller. Here we're going to talk about eczema. We're going to get into the common approaches with eczema. We're going to talk about the root causes underlying eczema and what's actually causing it. One of the things that I run to a lot in practice is either just people that have eczema or moms and dads that their children have eczema and it's really stubborn. And my heart, of course, goes out to those people. But one of the things that I want to help, if that's you, I want to help us understand how the common approaches have some different benefits, but ultimately I think you'll see they don't really get to the root of the issues behind eczema. So then we're going to jump into the root causes of eczema, and we're going to actually talk about what that looks like as far as actually addressing those issues and helping the body to heal itself. All right, so with the common approaches, maybe you've been to the doctor for your eczema, maybe you've taken your child. First and foremost, the most common approach that you'll generally see is a prescription or some kind of recommendation for a steroid cream. Now, steroid creams, they have some benefit as far as helping with some of the inflammation topically, helping with the dryness, the itchiness, and so forth. But ultimately, it's just addressing the skin. And eczema is an internal problem. It's an internal health issue that we're going to get to with the root causes, but that's by far your most common approach. You'll oftentimes as well, if your doctor is willing to dig a little bit, they'll consider doing some allergy testing. That's a very common recommendation as well, and kind of a common approach here. This can have some benefit, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about that after we go through the root causes so that we have a little bit better perspective. Oftentimes with the common approach here, you're going to have some kind of a recommendation or prescription for an allergy med. Now the purpose of these allergy meds are to really calm down and kind of suppress the immune system, calm down histamine responses and things like that. Again, can be benefit with these, but I really want to focus on the root causes, okay? Because that's really where I think people kind of miss the mark when addressing eczema issues. So what are the root causes of eczema? Number one, I just realized I missed a Y there. Number one, root causes of eczema, I would say it's a combination of the two, but I would say the first thing here is something we call leaky gut. Now, leaky gut, another name for that, we call it increased intestinal permeability. If you've seen any of my other articles or videos on gut health, or maybe you've been doing some research yourself, you've probably come across this term. Essentially what it means is the junctions in your gut health between your cells. The cells that your food comes along, the cells are supposed to absorb the nutrients, break them down, and send those nutrients into the blood from the gut. With leaky gut, the junctions between them are kind of broken down. And we'll talk about what causes that, but they get broken down. And then food, instead of going into the cells, becoming broken down, digested, and then sent into the blood, they go right into the blood undigested. And the problem with that is your immune system comes along, sees those food particles, doesn't recognize what it is because it's undigested, and so it starts kind of attacking it. And then you start to develop the second piece here, which is allergies and sensitivities. Now, I would say that the thing that I see most in practice and what I think is more of an issue with eczema is more sensitivity based rather than allergies. But that leaky gut allows the food particles to come out into the blood, your immune system reacts, and now you have these different issues here. So let's chat a little bit more about the root causes here, and then we'll kind of talk about some of the common approaches and how they can kind of miss the mark. With leaky gut, what causes the gut to break down? I would say there's two main pieces. I would say number one, you have infections, and then I would say number two, you have inflammation. Now, what are we talking about as far as infections? Well, you can have gut infections like parasites, you can have bacteria, you can have fungus like candida, and things like that. So those infections plus the inflammation is what then leads to the breaking down of the gut and the leaky gut. Now, what are the sources of inflammation? Well, a lot of times it's going to be more inflammatory foods. So think things like If you're getting too much of this, if you're not digesting it well, gluten can cause some different inflammation there. Processed dairies can cause some inflammation there. Obviously, inflammatory seed oils. I would argue processed food in general, processed foods instead of natural foods, all of those can contribute to this inflammation. And between the inflammation and the infections, that's going to really run down your gut health and really do a number on it. So let's take a step back here. We have the infections, the inflammation contributing to the gut health, causing this leaky gut. Now the food is not being digested, slides out into the blood, your immune system starts reacting to it. Now real quick, I want to differentiate the difference, or I want to talk about the difference between allergies and sensitivities. With allergies, this is going to be, a true allergy is what we refer to as an IgE response. Okay, sensitivities are either going to be IgG or oops, got ahead of myself there, or IgA, and then IgM. IgM is also another common one. So when we talk about allergies, this is when you get exposed to something, your throat swells up, you start getting swelling different parts of your body, your lips, you have just a fairly immediate response to things. Now a sensitivity, that's going to be more of, like I said, an IgG, IgM, or IgA response. And with sensitivities, you're not going to notice that initial just severe reaction, allergic reaction. You're going to notice more of inflammation over the following hours and days and so forth. So if you have an allergy, for example, to gluten, you eat gluten, your body starts reacting immediately. You start having just nasty, maybe stomach pains, maybe you're swelling up in your lips or something along those lines. With a sensitivity, you have gluten, you may develop stomach pain or discomfort over the following 30 minutes, hour, 2 hours, but it's really going to be over the next 24 to 48 hours that you're really going to notice your joints feel a little more achy, your muscles hurt a little bit more. Overall, you just have a little more inflammation. Now, overall though, these allergies and sensitivities can be a very important part when it comes to eczema. Now, when it comes to adults, I would say most commonly adults are really going to be wanting to focus on the leaky gut. And the reason why is because it's very challenging well, let me say it a different way. Adults are usually going to struggle more with leaky gut due to the gut inflammation and gut infections. Now, when it comes to kids, kids are going to be a little bit different. We're talking about generally much younger kids. So kids that have eczema, especially developing it at a very young age, one of the most common things that we see stir up the immune system and cause these issues is what we call a heavy metal toxicity. Now, heavy metals, one of the most common sources we see that today, especially with kids, is in vaccines. And so what's actually interesting is when we talk through the history, okay, when did your child develop this? What's going on here? We always talk about the time frame of things, and every so often we'll see that a young child developed it soon after they got a certain vaccine. And so we will check then for heavy metal toxicities and usually have to address those. Now, that's not always the case for kids, and oftentimes actually kids will have the leaky gut as well, the gut issues, and they'll have the immune system issues reacting to things. So essentially what we have to do, and this is what we'll get into with our second video here, our part 2, is we have to calm down the immune system and we have to help it to regulate itself better. But then we also have to get back to the gut and we have to kill the infections, we have to help the inflammation, and then once the gut heals itself, the immune system won't have that trigger, won't be reacting to it. We can calm down the immune system and the body just heals itself. Now, let's go back to these guys because I want to make sure we understand why these, or how these can be helpful, but why they don't necessarily hit the mark here. So number one, we talked about the steroid cream, just addressing the skin. It doesn't get to the gut issue. It doesn't help regulate your immune system better. Now, the allergy testing seems like a good idea, except for the fact that most of the time, the issue with your immune system And that heightened reactivity of the immune system is coming from sensitivities. So that's where you want to check these guys. Now with allergy testing, oftentimes they'll check these. Hopefully if the doctor's running different testing, hopefully they'll check IgG or IgM as well, or even IgA. But yeah, so with that testing, that's important. Now, so that testing can be helpful, but again, the gut is extremely important. And then number two, when we look at the testing, you know, a lot of times that the response, the thing that your immune system's reacting to is going to be a food. And so I see a lot of doctors doing testing for different allergens in the air, pollens, animals, all these things. That's usually not the issue. You know, if your immune system's heightened enough, you may react to just about anything. But if you're going to do testing, you really want to look at food sensitivities and see basically what you need to avoid and so forth as far as all that goes. Now, the allergy meds, again, they can be somewhat helpful with like the histamines and so forth, but they're really not proficient at helping calm down and helping regulate your immune system. Now, part of it depends on the trigger, right? If you have leaky gut and then you develop some kind of food sensitivity, maybe it's to gluten. Well, an allergy med is not necessarily going to help regulate your immune system and help calm it down. What these are usually doing is really just trying to dampen the response. It's trying to, instead of organize it and help control it better, it's just trying to kind of shut it down. And that's really not the best approach. So as we get into part 2 of treatment, we're really going to get into how do we go about addressing leaky gut? How do we go about addressing the infections, inflammation, if there's anything there? And then we're going to get into the immune system and how to really balance that out, reverse those sensitivities, and calm the immune system down. Helping with eczema and healing from eczema can be difficult, as you can see, because we have two main pieces going on here. And again, if we don't figure out the root cause, the root issues as to what's going on, then we're not able to treat it and we're not able to actually help support the body in healing itself. And that's obviously the goal. So I hope this video has been helpful for you. Check part 2 out. We're going to really get into the root causes and addressing those things. Again, as always, leave any comments, any questions, reach out if you have anything that you want to chat about. I'd be happy to help. But I hope this has been helpful for you. I'll see you in part 2.